pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marty Wood.
Mary Jo Rosmanowski. Here. Mary Jo Radcliffe. Here. Tom Epps.
Here.
Troy Webb.
Here.
Nick Helstedt.
Here.
Ann Deemer. Here. And Brad Dobbs.
Here. And has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
All right, I'm going to move that we pull forward on the agenda in this order items 8.4, 6.1, 7.2, 7.1, and 8.2.
I'll second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that puts us at 8.4, and that is the bus.
So the board would appreciate, we are very, very appreciative that there are so many guests here tonight, but they would love it if everyone would start with an introduction of yourself and just give them a little glimpse of what your role is in the district so everyone's aware.
I am Christy Kronczynski. I'm the transportation director for the school district. I started with the district in 2006 at Gebhardt in the kitchen. I worked there until I moved to the transportation office in 2009 and became the transportation dispatcher, and now I'm in my second year as the transportation director.
And loving every icy morning, yes!
Every single one, yeah. So we all know that I'm here to talk about buying a new bus. But since I only see you once a year, I wanted to just share some things about our department that I thought maybe you would find interesting that you may not already know. So our fleet consists of 20 conventional school buses, 72 passenger, and 4 small special education buses. We run 15 regular education routes every morning and every afternoon, along with 3 special education routes every morning and every afternoon. We have 4 midday 4K routes that take our 4K kids back and forth from home to school, and 2 midday special education routes. So we're running a total of 24 different routes each day. The number of students that we transport every year varies from year to year. COVID was a very low year for us, where we transported 783 students total back and forth to and from school. But those numbers in the last 5 years have been as high as 1,222 students that are being transported to and from school each year. We travel a lot of miles every day. On our 15 regular education routes every day, when I total up all those numbers, we travel 1,170 miles each day, in the morning and in the afternoon. That would be the equivalent of a one-way trip to New York City from Black River Falls, and we do that every day. If we add in our special education routes and our 4K routes that we do every day, we're looking at 1,725 miles each day, which would be a one-way trip to Las Vegas from Black River Falls. So I just wanted to share a few of those little things with you. Like I said, I only see you once a year, so I thought maybe you'd find those interesting. So.
And none of that takes into account all of our extra and co-curriculars that also have roads driving all over the place.
That is correct.
Get us to Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah. So, moving on to the bus bid, as you have seen in your packet, requests for bids for a 72 passenger conventional school bus were emailed to Midstate Truck in Marshfield, Wisconsin, Wisconsin Bus Sales in DeForest, Wisconsin, and, did I lose my place? Nelson in Whitewater. So Wisconsin Bus Sales and Nelson Bus Service did not submit bids this year. Midstate Truck responded by the requested deadline of Wednesday, January 11th at noon. And their bid was for a 2024 conventional school bus at a cost of $110,600. So I would respectfully request and recommend that the School District of Black River Falls purchase 1 bus from Midstate Truck Service at the bid price. plus $169.50 for title and registration for a total cost of $110,769.50. The funds for this purchase have been included in the 2023-2024 transportation budget, and the purchase and delivery of this unit would occur on or after July 1st of 2023. We try really hard, and we've done really well in the past, to be on a 10-year cycle with our buses for replacement. In about 10 years, we average about 120,000 miles per bus. So we try to get 2 buses every year. Unfortunately, the budget just has not allowed for that. So we're gonna try really hard at the end of this year, if there are year-end funds available, to purchase a second bus.
And that was something that I was going to share. So that 10-year replacement cycle really is contingent on 2 buses, at least 2 out of every 3 years. And this is now our 3rd year where we are not purchasing a second bus. Our budget has just gotten so tight that extra funds. Plus, I remember it wasn't that long ago that we saw a bid for a 72 passenger bus at $79,000, and so prices increased. We've moved this action item to January because with the supply and demand, we need to take one off the lot usually, because if we were to build one, it still meets all of our specifications, but it would take 12 months in order for us to be able to get that bus. So we are hopeful for end of year funds, but it is not likely that we will be able to get 2 out, which means as we do our budget for next year, we really need to plan for that 2 out of that year. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a spot where there's far too much of our fleet that needs replacing at one time.
Do you see that the lack of bidding is because they don't have the inventory to give us?
Yes.
Do you remember what we paid for the bus last year? I wanna say it was 104?
Maybe? I don't remember. Sorry.
I was just wondering how much, I believe it was over $100,000.
I believe you're right,
Yeah.
but I don't remember exactly.
What is the total transportation budget, roughly? Do you know that number off the top of your head?
No, I do not.
I was just curious.
And we
Where's
keep
Jill?
salaries separate. Well, we
Right,
keep
right,
salaries
right,
separate
right,
from the
yeah,
rest of
yeah,
it, and so that's certainly something that we can look at.
Yeah. I don't know how much.
Nicole is like, I'm just sitting here, please don't ask me. Just one other thing that I would like to highlight while Christy is here. So when Christy became the transportation director, instead of full-time replacing the dispatch, Joey Gilbertson, who works downstairs in this office, who has an amazing capacity, just like Christy does, and so many people within the district, just absorbed that. And so between Joey and Christy, they both work. Joey does the early mornings over at the transportation office, does the morning things, and then Christy comes in a little bit later and is there for the afternoon routes. Because of our significant shortage in drivers, there are many times that Christy still has to come in the morning because she's training a driver, then Joey ends up having to cover over there. They just really work on an absolute bare bones. Jeff Waffle is an amazing mechanic. We just got him back. He's been off for a while, so it's nice to see him back today, but they really run on bare bones staffing and just we look at those miles we travel, the trips that are taken, and nobody's left behind. So I really appreciate the work that that department does for sure.
This is a question that isn't about the bus purchase, but you know, when we were building that bus facility out there, people on Highway 8 had this big concern that they would have trouble getting in and out. Have there been any problems at all?
0.
Okay, I figured that.
Yep. Yeah. Our neighbors have actually been great. They were concerned about how many buses were going to be coming out
Right.
in and out every day.
Right.
But they've not had any complaints.
Good.
Last year, who did you buy the bus from? Was it Mid-State also?
Mid-state. Yep.
They've been very reliable, right? Easy to work with, good service.
Make a motion to accept the bid from Mid-State for the new bus.
I'll second.
All right, motion second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we are moving on to 6.1, our focus on purpose.
So we have with us today some amazing group of teachers that are here to talk about social studies. So we'll start with kindergarten and we're going to work our way all the way up to 5th grade. And they'll talk to us about who they are as they move through. They'll come up to the mic and talk into the people joining us online can hear.
Hi, June Johnson, first grade teacher and PLC leader. I'm representing the kindergarten team tonight, and they wanted me to tell you that their social studies is integrated into their curriculum, the knowledge, and through CKLA. And they have a big Kings and Queens Tea Party towards the springtime, where they wrap up the unit in that way.
I'm Caitlin Walker. I'm also a first grade teacher. I'm also an assistant for the middle school basketball girls program. So we also integrate our social studies within our knowledge in CKLA. Specifically, we look at landforms as well as looking at continents and oceans, and we actually study those. They learn about all 7 of them. We also will look at same stories, different countries, and they actually look at the map and locate these countries in the map. And we also do Me on the Map, where they look from all the way from where they live on Earth, all the way down to their city of Black River Falls.
I am Kristen Browning, a second grade teacher here in the district. I am also in charge of the swimming lesson program. So I am the one that all the parents email, and I sign their kids up for swimming lessons, and then after we're all said and done registering the kids, then I also teach the swimming lesson program too, in the swimming lesson program along with Claire Danielson and John Thoreau.
For how many years?
I have been doing this for 22 years. 26 years total. So I, like I said, teach second grade. So for social studies, we have our own social studies block. We piggyback on what first grade does. We go just a little bit deeper. So we talk about different groups of people, how we talk about maps, we talk about why someone might choose a globe versus a flat map. On any given task, we talk about physical and human characteristics of maps, and then we also analyze when and where people live in certain places. We talk about rural, suburban, and urban areas. Any other questions?
Do you guys still use daily geography questions, or?
We do not.
Okay.
No. And then I am also here to represent third grade. They could not make it today. So I will have you, this is their year at a glance, so I'll have you take a look at that. They talk about the trimester 1, 2, and 3, what they work on throughout the year. And then if you want to flip to the next slide, you can also see different things that they do within their social studies curriculum.
Hi, I'm Mary Danielson. I've been teaching in the district for 27 years plus, and then, I've done a lot in the district. Right now I'm the head girls golf coach, and I do all the lifeguard training for the area for the district, and then teach swimming lessons with Kristen. So yeah, that's been a lifetime of that. I think I was 18 when I first started teaching swimming lessons, so I think I had Nicole swimming lessons years ago. Right, Nicole?
Well, maybe.
If you want to look at our slides too, what I did for our slides is I kind of showed you a little bit of what we do. We talk about the early people of Wisconsin, our mapping. We do a lot of, our books are right there, and you can kind of see when it caught some voices and votes. I really like this. The Native people of Wisconsin, and over there in the orange book is one of my favorite, talks about the early people. Helps us deal with the Act 31, having that integrated in our curriculum and in our content. And one of the things that we do is we talk about ho-chunk removal as part of our curriculum. We usually have an activity set up where we talk about ho-chunk being removed from different areas of Wisconsin and being relocated to places in Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota, and what that looked like for them. We also do an early people of Wisconsin, which is going back to the paleos millions of years ago. And if you go to the next slides, Nicole, you can see our pictures. On the left, we do an archaeological presentation. There's a woman that comes from La Crosse that does this awesome presentation and has all these artifacts, and the kids have to determine what group of people it comes from. And so really neat artifacts. You can see the one that he's holding, which is a hoe from past time. So, and we get our capital trip in for the study of Wisconsin And then the FFA takes really good care of us, Brad. And we get to do some really cool crop yield and cheese making that are all part of that wonderful Wisconsin fourth grade history that we love so much. I do love teaching Wisconsin history as well. And I'm also here to speak for fifth grade. As you can see, they have a pretty good program right there set up with early settlements and revolution again. And your geography, a lot of that first part is talking about geography. I know they do a lot of study with states and capitals and the parts of the map. And then they get into settlements, the revolution time. I know they take a trip to Neilsville, to the high grounds. There's just some neat thing, nice programs around that. They get to make those connections with their curriculum and the content of what they've been doing. So state and local governments, and that's the government text if you didn't catch that part. So yeah, a lot of neat stuff going on at the elementary level. Thank you.
Do you still do the capital trip every year?
We have it all set up again this year, and we usually split time between the Capitol for half the time, and then we go to the Historical Museum, but the Historical Museum's under construction, so we're gonna actually go to the Veterans Museum this year. And then our morning, we actually go to the Vilas Zoo because it's a free zoo. So we spend the whole day down there. We have the zoo and the Capitol and the museum in the afternoon. It's a really cool trip.
Sometimes it's overlap when we do our WASB advocacy, and I run into
Yeah.
the class.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a trip that the kids get really excited about. I know that for sure. In fact, I told them today, and they're like, "We're going to Madison? What?" So it's very fun for them.
It's an extended day, and so they think that's extra special, right? Because you guys get back about 5:30.
About 5 o'clock, 5:30.
Yeah.
So
Excellent. Any questions about social studies or for any of the team that's here?
Thank you.
Thanks so much for taking the time to come tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, next is 7.2, our new course proposals.
Before we go in, can we just do a test that we could hear you, Jen and Britton? Can you hear me?
Yes. And we heard you. Perfect.
Awesome.
Just like you planned.
Whoa, here we go, right? Okay, so next on the agenda, we have teachers here to talk about their new course proposals for the high school. The first sheet in your packet kind of just did a quick summary, and we'll probably go in this order, starting with science, going into art, music, and then agriculture. So if we could start with Nate. Mr. Wildenberg, would like to come up?
Hi there, I am Nate Wildenberg, science teacher at the high school. Also assistant coach in soccer. I have a fellowship of Christian Athletes Club and a chainmail club. We're here to talk about physical science, which is a new course we are proposing to be the new required course for freshmen in the high school, pushing biology to 10th grade. This will be a course that's focused mostly on chemistry and physics to kind of give them that physical science background that they don't really get in any other classes that are required in the high school, to better round out the national science standards and the Wisconsin science standards so that all of our students are actually getting through all of them instead of picking and choosing their path to take the easier courses or avoid certain standards and then getting done with high school without completing the whole picture. If you have any questions on that course, I'm happy to answer them, but that's kind of the overview.
I didn't have any question on the course. I noticed that, I was looking at the budgets for all of them and that your curriculum writing was a lot higher than the other courses. Is it because there's more people working on it?
There are more people working on it, yes, and we have to build everything more or less from the base up because it's a new required course that all freshmen will be taking.
And so perhaps the board remembers when the secondary gave their board report on science, they also talked about the connection to middle school, making sure that 8th grade and high school were both talking to make sure that they had the prerequisite skills before they got to high school. So I'm guessing they're also part of that conversation.
Yes.
I was just going to add that we were excited about this from the curriculum perspective and how this is going to work with the implementation of standards-based grading and standards-based education in the science department. So it's a really good opportunity to bring all of these pieces together. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Nate?
So what would the high school science offerings, so we've got physical science, biology, just one biology course, or?
So physical science would be all freshmen. 10th grade would open up to biology, which is a 2-trimester course that would be required for science or our students as well. We would also open up a geology and oceanology, astronomy. We have a sustainability course, forensic science. Then going on to like 11th grade and 12th grade, we get into our 3 AP courses: AP Environmental, AP Bio, AP Chemistry. We have physics, I'm forgetting something, health science, anatomy and physiology.
Wow.
I think there's one more that I'm forgetting. There are a lot of science courses. This is to fill that physical science gap preferably, because most of the other ones I said, physical science would be chemistry, physics, and like geology.
So this is the making the physical sciences a requirement versus all of those are upper level.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah.
So do we need to take action? We can
Your
take
choice.
action on them individually, or?
So I guess my advice would be, can we listen to all of them and then ask if there's any that need to be pulled out before somebody made a motion? But it's your wishes.
Is everyone good with that? Sure.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, next up we have Jen Dahl. I think.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to write course proposals and be at the high school. So my first course proposal is about art therapy and wellness, and I do not claim to be or will ever be an art therapist because that's a very different job. But our students have a lot of needs in the area of wellness, therapy, mindfulness, and just that overall sense that sometimes art can give us. That reflection piece, that using art to cope with some of those stresses that are at the high school level. I'm sorry, my golden retriever thinks it's time to play with the squeaky toy. And anyway, I decided to offer this kind of course. I have a friend who works in Chippewa Falls who offers this course, and there is often a waiting list because there is such a huge need. I am often my high school students' person. Like, they come to me for not just lunch and learn, but just to listen sometimes. And I feel like this course will fit that spot perfectly.
That was agreement.
Oh my goodness. And you want me to talk about the art of craft too?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the art of craft is the second one, and this one is basically like, as you grow into an adult, to enjoy art and crafts beyond being a fine artist, being a printmaker or a painter, because my painting and printmaking students, they have extreme talent. I want this class to be for the person who wants to do wood burning or batik, or learn those things that they can use for the rest of their life. Learn how to crochet or metal tooling or things like that. So this class will bring that. It doesn't have to be such a high art. Like my drawing kids today, they blow me away each day, and I want this to be something that they can use for the rest of their life. Any questions?
I do have a question, Jen, actually. That's Troy West.
Yep.
Hey, for the art therapy course,
Yep.
I had a couple questions. One of the things you have in there as in a summary was to reconcile conflicts and manage behavior. But the question I have is, art is therapeutic. I would not argue that whatsoever.
Yep.
But to teach those skills in an art class, that kind of deviates a little bit from the purpose of art itself. Is just a therapy of actually doing something that takes away from those things, maybe. And so my question is, does that duplicate a little bit what's going on in just your general art class? Is something that the art can be a discovery of that? So a class dedicated just to that one subject, or just saying that it should be a therapeutic class, it
Yep.
changes the whole meaning of what the purpose of the class is, in my opinion. And I'm
Okay.
curious how you reconcile that.
So this summer I would like to take a mindfulness class and really learn how to work that into those everyday conflicts that students have. This class will be a lot about not art production, where the other art classes are about art production. This will be more about reflection, ways that we can use art to reduce stress and anxiety. It'll include lots of journaling and reflection. The grading will mostly be done on journaling, reflection, and thinking about how our feelings can relate. And sometimes I'm the place where all of those feelings come out. Those big, big feelings. Art is a safe space where you can do that.
Thanks for your input.
Yep.
Any other questions for Jen? Awesome. Throw the ball a few times now while we listen to the others.
So the next section is for music. And we have two classes from the music department, Piano Lab and the History of Rock and Roll. The big idea for Piano Lab is it's going to be for students who would like to learn more about music through the instrument of the piano. So they'll literally be paired up on the piano and be working through different piano type of lessons. That's very technical, musical discourse. I apologize for this. And then the second class is the History of Rock and Roll, and it's kind of like this, the whole idea is to really engage students and revitalize the music appreciation class, and doing that by going through the history of that genre, and it kind of lists through the different pieces that they would like to look at. The idea is like to have another way of bringing kids into the music department.
And Mr. Schluntz or Mrs. Newsel?
Mrs. Newsel is Piano Lab, and Mr. Schluntz is the History of Rock and Roll.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions?
We expanded, obviously, the music department expanded this last year.
The physical space.
The physical space. So that's my next question is, as we're offering more courses, how are we filling more time that's necessary as the teachers' courses are? They need to put more courses in there in order to maximize their efficiency of, basically what they're taking, for scheduling those. Is that what they're doing right now by adding 2 more courses? Because they're removing 2 courses is my question on that one.
So right now, both of our music programs are primarily performance-based. There is some music theory that also is taught. To be honest, COVID really did quite a number on participation in the music department. And so that idea of revitalizing interest is 100% on mark. You'll notice that a lot of the, as Nate was talking about the number of science electives, just over time, a lot of departments talk about what kind of electives can we offer to meet the needs of our students right now. And so that's probably where we landed with all these other electives. And then kids found a way to take the path of fun electives as opposed to the core science that we were talking about. So all other content areas are similar in that they want to grow interest and engage students. And so the music department has these beautiful spaces. And so for that choir room to only be utilized during the one choir that meets is really an underutilization of that area. Whereas if kids perhaps didn't think they wanted to do performance but took a music class like this and found it interesting, enjoyed their time with the teacher, they might be willing to engage in one of the performance classes after that. So
thank you for explaining.
Yeah,
I kind of had a similar question as yours, Troy. All of those said no, they don't need more staff for them. So then I thought, have we had extra staff, or are we taking
So when it
away?
comes to music specifically, they have lesson time. So we aren't talking about adding staff because it would be at an exchange for lesson time. Mr. Schluntz right now goes over to the middle school as well. And so we're constantly working with Mr. Nortman as to how they can work that schedule so choir at the middle school is a little bit of Mrs. Cole's coming up from Red Creek and Mr. Schluntz coming down from the high school. And so that is
Wasn't necessarily thinking of music as all the others too.
Yeah. So sometimes, some courses that are introduced, we talk about making some classes available on an every other year basis, right? Like the AP courses. If students are doing their 4-year plan, they can know that AP Bio is going to be this year and this year. So in my 4 years, they better grab it one of those 2 years. So not all classes need to be offered every single year. And so we kind of do the vote with your feet. When they do the student interest, kids put in where their interests are, and that's how their first blush at what classes will be offered that year. Some sit dormant in the schedule for a while because there's not enough kids that, sign up and. Speaking of a guy who runs all over the district and does all kinds of great work, I think we're up to agriculture.
Right. What a nice segue. Hi, I'm Brad Markart. I am the Agricultural Education Department here for the district. I am enjoying my 31st year with the school district. I also lead the FFA organization. And I come to you proposing a class called Advanced Agricultural Education. This comes about for two major things. One, when we made the switch to the trimesters at the high school, it created one extra teaching section for all of the teachers. And so this is a way for me to, so that's why we wouldn't need more teacher necessarily to do this, because I can teach one section of everything else and still be able to offer this as well. And this comes about from, I am constantly getting from students, oh, I'd love to take, the next level of this class, because we offer a breadth of the ag industry, and it's a big industry. And I really like the opportunities that students get, and they can see a lot of different things that happen. This will give them an opportunity to take it to the next level. And a key aspect of this class would be utilizing the ICEV curriculum. It's a video-based curriculum. They have some industry certifications with that students could do. So if they took food science, they got really interested in meat science, they could take, there's a meat evaluation certification that's based, I don't remember if it's Hormel or someplace, certifies this curriculum. And if they really enjoyed, we took a plant science class, wow, I really enjoyed working with flowers, there's a floriculture certificate that they could get. They could also, if they wanted to take, they could do an FFA career development event or a leadership development event. All of those are aligned with standards, not only the agricultural standards, but they crosswalk with other core area standards. So they would be able to, relatively easy, the onus would be on me as the instructor to help make sure that all of those students right away at the very beginning have got their plans in place. This is what we're going to do. And then they've got an opportunity to do that, to take it to the next level. But the prerequisite would be you need to have had another ag class first. That way they know me, they know my requirements with those individual type projects. And I would feel very comfortable then with them being able to do that, striking out and just taking that to the next level.
Can you give us an example? I know, like, you have landscaping in there, like, and then what in addition would you do to that as a internship or something like that, or job shadowing, or what? So
what's really neat about ag education, we use that 3-circle model where you've got the classroom experience, you've also got opportunity to go into the FFA, and then we have what are called SAEs, Supervised Agricultural Experience. So already I have students do individualized learning projects. So someone that took a landscape design class, for example, could say, hey, I'd really like to take this further. I'd like to do the FFA Landscape and Nursery Career Development event. And it's a very rigorous event, and it takes a lot of preparation. It's one of the reasons why I don't have a ton of students that do those right now, because they're usually also involved in after-school sports, and they've got chores at home, and they've also got a job. And so the time within the day, and I'm not available during, like right now we have a lunch and learn, that's when I'm teaching my middle school classes. So the ability to interact with these students that want more is it's really at a premium. And I saw this as a neat opportunity to touch base with them. So someone they could say, I'm gonna do this landscape nursery career development event. And the National FFA has laid out a very great program of, okay, this is and they could compete if they want to too. They could take it to that level and compete against other students in the region and go on to state and things. So that's what someone might do.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what ag classes are offered in high school currently?
So right now, we have an animal science class that's transcribed credit class with Western. It's a 2-trimester class. We have a plant science class, again, a 2-trimester class transcribed with Western Technical College. We have an environmental management class, a food science class, a leadership development class, a landscape design class. I should have been counting on my fingers. There are 9 of them.
That was like 6, I think.
Did you do small animal? Did you?
Yeah, that would be part of that
The
animal science one.
Okay.
So it does come out if I teach one section of everything. I have one open spot that I could teach this class. If we can just limit me to just one section of it.
That would be for all 3 trimesters?
That would be for all 3 trimesters, plus my 7th grade class.
I can certainly share with you the link to the course description booklet. Mrs. Seacard at the high school has done a great job revamping that, and it's super clear all the different opportunities that exist in every one of the content areas.
Yeah, and those, and I'm not sure what they're called, but they're like a curriculum flow map. I really hope those don't leave the book. I know they're revising the book, but I really like them because it kind of shows that flow of how these different courses sequence out potentially. And even with that number of agriculture classes, we are operating within a pathway. Like that leadership class actually falls within a lot of pathways because there's a lot of those great career skills sets that are being taught. And then like the environmental management and the plant science class kind of fall nicely within either a plant science career path or a conservation kind of a career path. So so even though I know there's a lot there, it actually seeing within the pathways, it really does make sense. And what would be nice about this is students would then have another level, which I haven't been able to give them, a potential at another level of something that, I really like that landscape, like you said. And so now I've got that opportunity to take maybe another year with it. There you go, that's the one. Nicely done. That shows you those pathways. And I don't hit, we've got 8 different pathways in agriculture, but I can highlight these couple, and you can kind of see how those classes then fit within those pathways. That is great. That's called a producer that does those things, right? Excellent job pulling that up.
You know, you could have done like 5 minutes ago, a lot easier on them.
Any other questions?
I know that a lot of kids go into the agriculture field as their careers. When you have someone in this advanced area, will you steer them towards universities and things like, or I know you already do that, but will there be an extra kind of push for that?
Right, that it's another opportunity for them to see those kinds of things. And even just for example, because I have this in my head because I just got back from an FFA conference this weekend, and we were talking about the regional career development events, and they take place at technical college campuses and university campuses. And so someone takes this class, yep, I'm gonna do livestock evaluation, and they're going to go down to either UW or up to River Falls or down to UW Platteville and compete in that event. And so you're even getting your feet on the ground at those places as well. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so our final class that we're talking about is leadership with Britton Slowey.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Britton Slowey. I'm currently an instructional coach at the high school. My background is in health education and at-risk education. So I am not as great on the fly as Brad and everyone else. So I wrote up a little something because I haven't been in the district nearly as long, and I really wanted to give you all kind of an understanding of where my passion for this comes from. So I'm here tonight to request you to consider approving a servant leadership course for high school students. I believe that it will change their lives, and in doing so, they will impact their peers, and eventually they will collectively change this school and the community. Kids have an impact now. I'm proposing a course that will teach youth how to be a positive impact, how to be agents of change, and how to show gratitude. The most powerful part of my teacher education program was under the supervision of Steve Jones at Kimberly High School over by Appleton. Steve taught health, but his leadership courses were the most popular offering in that school of 1,200 students. He taught kids lifelong skills that gave them confidence in their ability to be agents of change. His students changed teen attitudes about drugs and alcohol. They took on community projects. They mentored younger youth, they served the elderly, and they continue to make a difference in that community. He also coached football, and he took servant leadership to his team. He trained the upperclassmen to be servant leaders to the underclassmen on the team. Seniors carried equipment of freshmen. They watched out for loners in the lunchroom. They became mentors with a powerful message. You are a part of something greater than yourself. Together, we can accomplish anything we set out to do. And this turned out to be eerily true, as Steve's football teams compiled the longest record of 70 consecutive wins and 5 consecutive state championships in high school football in the nation. Now, I'm not here to ask to coach football. That would not be good. But I am passionate about helping youth discover their potential and their power. Servant leadership frames this in the bigger context of serve first and lead second. We start small. How can each of you serve a peer, someone you know, in small acts of kindness and generosity? This expands into how we can collectively serve our school, or a critical need within our student body, or a community need. Servant leadership teaches you compassion, gratitude, to put others first, to listen and be patient, to be a problem solver rather than a complainer. You are all members of the school board because you believe in the power of servant leadership. I'm asking you to help me embed servant leadership into the Black River Falls High School curriculum so that our graduates not only read, write, and compute brilliantly, but they also embrace serving the common good. Any questions for me?
Would this be open to all 4 high school grades?
So we have discussed having it be kind of an application process and then forming a small committee of teachers to go through them and collectively come to a consensus about who we think those students should be. And we are only proposing this as a trimester course. I currently am working with juniors and seniors in our advising, which is only 36 minutes. And that's kind of where this idea stemmed from. I have about 15 or 16 students in that. And we have noticed over the course of the last trimester and a half that 36 minutes is just not nearly enough time to really focus on character development and, you know, the theory behind servant leadership and all of those pieces. And I really think to help students become these true leaders, they need more of that in order to do the what, in order to, you know, have events and really make some culture change in the school.
I had a question. As you mentioned, you do this through advising right now, and I think the values that you're espousing are excellent. I just had a question. How do you grade something like this? Because it's as a health course now. They earn a grade obviously from this. And how does that happen in your previous experience? And how would you go through that now?
So in my previous experience when I worked with students in this course, a lot of it is, you know, they're working together and they're working collaboratively, and so they have to depend on one another. So a lot of, I guess the grading aspect of this comes from our health standards because it's about decision making, and it's about, you know, I'm not really sure how to answer the question of grade. We don't have a grade. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, Britton, like I would more than happy to dive into that with you, because with standards-based grading, it really aligns nicely with this. Like, you hit it right on the head. We would think about the health standards and the standards that hits, and then we would work from there in that implementation.
The follow-up part of that is right now the club and sports model actually kind of do a lot of the same things, because you even mentioned that football was a big part of how this was example through this coach that you had in your past. is this a redundancy a little bit in the sense where clubs do a lot of the exact same things that you're talking about? I think is there, I'm not sure what the clubs are right now available, but isn't there a servant-based club right now that's already in action? I remember they were talked about something like that a while ago, but it doesn't matter. I guess if there is something that's similar, because the sports will say they are very similar, there might be a little redundancy built into this right now too, or is you want to get kids in this program, but also there's opportunities already through extracurricular activities, because that's exactly what the clubs are. One of their purposes are.
But there are many, many kids who extracurriculars are not available to them due to family circumstances, interest, all of those things. And so by embedding it into coursework, that removes that barrier for those kids that aren't able to participate in that way. I don't know if Luke or Kim wants to speak. There was that leadership group that has done a lot of great things, but that's that 36 minutes, small group, all of that stuff.
And it's been wonderful, but it's had a very small impact to this point. Okay. And Britton's proposal would, as the word Dr. Severson used, was embedded. It would be embedded in the culture of our building because it's taught with all freshmen.
Well, thank you all for your input.
I really like the idea of this course. It could really make an impact on the culture in our schools, I think.
It's a nice piggyback from the leadership course that's taught in 8th grade as well. So from that to I like it a lot.
And leadership as a field of study is fascinating. Lots of research and leadership, like all sorts of, I get excited about that stuff. And the servant leadership piece, it's great.
Any more budget questions for Nicole? Just kidding. I'm just teasing you. Just teasing. Any other questions about the course proposals?
I'd just like to make a comment. I want to thank everyone for presenting. We have some great resources in our district, and every one of these, it seems to increase growth and expanding the interest for students, providing opportunities, and thus increasing attendance. I mean, we've talked about our attendance over and over, and if we can spark interest of kids really relating, this is really important. I make a motion to approve all of the new course proposals as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, she made the motion for all of them. I have reservations about 2 of the courses, but the rest of them I would. So do we want to? Would you like to direct it? Would you like to change to individual vote, or do you want to?
Well, this is a part of discussion. You can pull those out and discuss.
Exactly. Would you want? It's up to you. I mean, do you want to individualize or not?
It's time for discussion.
Yes.
So if there's
that's up to you. So you person who made the motion would be able to say that.
Right. So right now the motion before the board is all 7 of the courses as presented. We can choose to pull out if you want 2 or 1 or whatever, and discuss those separately. Do you want to talk about the ones that you have reservations about first?
Sure, I could add the art therapy and the leadership only because we can discuss them, but those are the 2 ones I'd like to I have a reservation about.
Okay. So let me just real quick check. So the proper way to do that would be to amend the motion to be the other 5 then.
Yes, I think so.
So are you making that amendment then?
Or do we talk about them and
we
see if
could be in discussion about it.
Yeah, and that's
and if see how everybody feels about those. If you don't have a majority that agrees with that, then we could still approve those the way that motion was presented, I would think.
Right. The only reason I bring it up is because with the reservation of 2 of you, it's hard to say approve all of that. So that, and I still, if you guys decide to do that, that's fine. We can vote on all of them at one time. That's fine too. And the only reason is that I understand what both of these courses are trying to accomplish, but academically, I think that's where the difficulty comes in for me, because extracurricular always has been the extra part of learning. To me is you go through your core structure, core principle, core studies during your school day, and all the extra stuff was into enrichment. That's enrichment basically, and both these courses basically are enriching some of that. Doing for the student what they're supposed to do is enriching in the extra part of the whole school, because right now if you start deviating too much, I think, into we're just going to enrich and not do the core work, that's where it gets difficult. And I know we switched structure to a trimester, so there is more course availability now as well, but I could see where if you have students who are struggling and will this enrichment help them with their core is the question. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know the answer to that, but without, we talk about summaries, but we don't have curriculum developed yet. A couple of these that, as I understand, they're working on it. They don't have it all done right now. Where do you?
Did you go through the packet? I'm sorry to interrupt.
The packet didn't show details. It just said basically the PLC signed off on it, and it said it had a couple questions there. There was some had more detail than the other, but some had very little detail.
And so I just want to clarify that we're not advocating for changing any of the graduation requirements.
Mm-hmm.
They would still need the same number of math credits, science credits, social studies credits, and there is a lot of elective credits that students are filling. We have more students who are looking for work-based learning. We have increases, I don't know this year, but in the past, more students graduating early. Part of that idea of providing enrichment during the day is all day is not math, science, social studies. That's not real school at all. And so creating electives that engage interest, I would 100% agree with the comment about attendance. When kids get attached to adults and coursework and groups that they feel a good part of, that certainly improves attendance as well. So we're not talking about changing any graduation requirements, just the electives would be broadened.
Can I talk for just a second? So also Britton and I are based on the standards as well. I mean, there's a long list of standards that I wrote that my students will be graded upon as part of this course. And I think not thinking about it as an elective, but think about it as a whole person. Like, these courses hit that core of students as a people. And do you do well at physical science if everything else in your life is crashing down? Sometimes no. So I think these kind of courses are out of the box. And I do understand why you have questions, but I think they're out of the box so that it hits those students that need it the most.
I'm also reflecting on the business partnership committee conversation about specifically leadership in students, that they felt that public speaking and assertiveness and just the way you carry yourself, that leadership skills are something very desirable by workforce. So it certainly has that alignment as well.
Well, the other last thing was too, like Mr. Marker was talking about, FAA has a leadership chapter or segment of their course. That's another opportunity they have, and that's part of a core curriculum. I will not argue that, but that's also structured because it's been basically there's a structure that's from an organization that's actually been doing this for a long time, and FFA's been on for a long time, so I'm not sure how many years, but it's only an element of it because it still has the core, and then it brings in the leadership aspect, and then it brings on the particular studies that he's talking about. And the art one just seems, I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just like, it's, when you start talking about the art, I think art is therapeutic. I wouldn't argue that whatsoever, but it's the act of learning it and doing it and expressing yourself, I think is something that you could go and you could build upon. But is that something you do in art class or not? And that's where the only thing I just feel a little different, because when we're talking about, basically social skills and behavior conflicts, it's like that in an art class. I'm not saying Ms. Dull is not qualified whatsoever. I think it's just basically it's almost a counselor session sometimes where instead of a course, and then that's where the academics get kind of confusing too, because you don't grade counseling, you help the student. And that's all I'm saying is about this. I think that the art therapy, I think that art classes are themselves is therapy, but I also think sports is therapeutic and many other things are as well. So every student's a little different. And I understand that you have standards in there, but will those standards align with a student who is there for counseling more than they are for the art? And that's where it gets difficult.
If I could offer, if a majority of the board shares the same concerns, then we could approve these two courses with the understanding that they would bring their curricular guarantees back to the board when they have articulated those and how they will be graded. If the majority of the board shares those concerns, I am very confident those two will do that alignment. When you talk about health curriculum and the art standards, there's plenty of standards for alignment. So if that is the wishes of the majority, we certainly could do that.
I do have one question. How many art courses are offered?
Go back to the book. Stahl, do you know that off the top of your head? Otherwise, we can go to the course description booklet.
At the top of my head, drawing, painting, ceramics, printmaking.
We got you.
Okay.
So basically, the one teacher would be doing it all, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And I guess the way I look at art is it's kind of the eye of the beholder, so it'd be hard to grade anyways, but I'm not an art teacher. You know, because art might think it's really ugly, somebody else might think it's awesome,
The standards that I'm going to hit hard on, Nick, for this course are all about connection and reflection. And in my packet of my proposal, you'll see those standards, like the Wisconsin standards of how you reflect upon your art and how those reflections and presentation of art. So I'm going to be hitting those ones more in the respond category, more over than the create category. And the other art classes are all, mostly the standards are create. These are going to be respond, connecting, all those things that go together with art.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think the two classes that you're concerned about really complement the other courses that we have. You know, they don't stand alone, they're elective. They're a nice complement and a nice alternative for some kids to take.
I guess the way I look at it is if you can get, I have nothing against art, but if you can get credits for drawing or therapy art, what's the difference, really? I mean, it's going to open your, I guess I look at it as like these high school kids, especially if they can find at least a couple of courses throughout the day that make them want to be there. That's kind of what you're going for.
So I guess what you're saying, Nick, and what I think Ms. Dahl is saying as well, and Mary Jo was saying, getting the kids involved is worth the effort in these newer courses in order to get them enriched and back into the core curriculum in the future. You guys think this is a way of doing that, and also obviously the teachers do as well. So okay.
And I'll just add too, I think every single thing that we've seen tonight too, it also relates to a future. If someone really wants to go into art therapy, I mean, there's a future there as a profession.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an introduction of what that can be, and I still will stand with my motion to approve all of them.
And I think you guys satisfied my reservations. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
I do have a question with the enrollment, you know, anywhere from 10 to 25 or maybe all the freshmen for physical science. I mean, does it have to meet a certain requirement to offer the class, or is that the maximum that you could have?
Our past practice is we don't run anything with less than 9 students has been past practice. Some of our, for example, like our upper level Spanish classes, there might be a Spanish 3 and 4 happening at the same time because there's only a few students in each one of those, but 9 is usually our minimum.
Okay.
And we don't have per policy a maximum other than the class sizes that we've agreed upon as guidelines K-8.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion on this? All right, so right now the motion in front of the board is consent agenda on all 7 of the courses. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
And before everyone leaves, if I could, under the Our People, we were going to celebrate Ms. Jen Dahl, and it turns out she happens to be Zooming with us, so if we could, there she is, make her big on the screen there. Ms. Jen Dahl, the fabulous Dahl, has earned another National Recognition Award, and so we are very excited for her. She is a Youth Art Month Award of Excellence winner. She is the Wisconsin, not just the Wisconsin representative, like there's a representative from every single state. That is not the case. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 awards across the nation, and she is, she might have said in an email, I missed first place by half a point, not that she's competitive at all, but second place, Jen, is absolutely number one in our hearts, and we love her, so congratulations.
Thank you so very much. I couldn't do it without a super supportive school district.
Thanks, Jen, we appreciate you. So she is going to San Antonio in April to receive that honor, so good for her. All right.
Good job, Jen.
Thank you very much to all the staff that came to present. In the past, we've not always had staff come to share their proposals, so I think that was a brainchild over there. I really appreciate it. It added an awful lot to the discussion, so thank you.
Give them just a few seconds to clear out here, but then we're moving on to 7.1, the Spanish Club trip to Costa Rica.
And there was a website link in your packet, and Mr. Rukavina is here to share with you. Get out of the way again.
Yes, hello, my name is Mark Rukavina. I've been a Spanish teacher in the district for, this is my 23rd year. In addition, as the years have gone on, I've taken on some other responsibilities as well too. I'm actually the virtual school coordinator for the middle and high school, and also the 504 coordinator for the middle and high school, and I coach tennis, and I think I've been coaching boys tennis for almost 20 years, and girls tennis for the last 3 or 4. So that's what I do in the district. As you can see, we've traveled in the district. I think when we were here for our Focus on Purpose for the Spanish department, I believe it was a little over a year ago, we got a couple questions from the board, and one of the ones was, do you travel? And we said, yes, we have traveled, and we've been traveling to Spanish-speaking countries way back when I started at the beginning of the 2000s. And we've probably taken about, I think, 10 trips now over the past 20-some years. And the last few years we haven't traveled. Our last scheduled trip that we did have with the Spanish club in the high school was June of 2019, and that's when COVID kind of came in, and so we didn't travel that year, and we haven't traveled since. Being uncertain of the last few years, we haven't planned a trip, and so we started last year just kind of seeing what we could do as far as interest, and we held a parent meeting last June, well actually it was last May, which we had about 10 parents at virtually, and then we just held another parent interest gauging Zoom meeting with the company that we travel with, which is called Experitus, just last week ago Monday. And then we already started fundraising for those students that are interested on Tuesday night at the wrestling meet. So that all of that kind of leads to, we've been doing this for quite some time, and it's kind of a normal thing that we do, and so we wanted to come to the board and say we'd like to do this again. I know we have other groups in high school that have traveled as well since, so that's where it is. Up on the screen there you can see the name of the company that we travel with. We've traveled with the same company for the last 20-some years. It started out being something called ISE, which was Intercultural Student Experiences, which is a nonprofit organization that's in the Twin Cities area. That nonprofit joined with this company called Experitus, so it's still the same company that we've been traveling with. I've always traveled with nonprofit organizations because I really believe that those are the best organizations to travel with, especially for language learning. Back when our first trip, which was right about after 9/11, I had a lot of colleagues that traveled with for-profit companies. And right after 9/11, a lot of school boards got very nervous about international travel, and many of those companies folded, and many students lost their trips. We were able to travel right after that just because the company as a nonprofit was able to make it work. And we've traveled with them ever since to different places, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Spain, up through all the years. And so this company is a language learning company, and that's our focus, is learning language. It's a travel and family stay where students get to travel and stay with a family, and it's an immersion experience. We speak Spanish with them as soon as we get in the van to go travel to the airport, if that's what we're doing, and we speak Spanish all the way through. We don't have parents come with us usually because we want the kids to have an immersion experience, and the guides that we travel with speak Spanish, and so it's a very unique experience. I did have a video here, if we have enough time to look at it. It very well explains, and if you look here, I've traveled actually in this video with the guide from Costa Rica here at least a couple different times, and the person I've traveled with as the teacher that you're going to see as well, she's from northern Minnesota, and we traveled with that group as well too. So if you want to cue it up, this is a good
this is just a huge classroom on wheels, and we just learn and learn and learn in the environment.
Estoy aquí porque quiero practicar hablar español.
Dólares.
They have the guides that speak Spanish the whole time, and the kids sign the code of conduct that they're going to speak Spanish.
La lengua es muy diferente y cuando las personas hablan a mí, habla muy rápido que mis profesoras.
Después 2 o 3 días es más fácil.
Se va viendo el cambio, cómo van tomando confianza y cómo van sintiéndose más cómodos hablando español.
They're ready for it now. We put them into those family stays, and it's completely Spanish. All day, everything around them is all Spanish.
Yo trabajo en este programa como coordinadora de las familias en Atenas. Ellos ya hacen parte de su familia desde que llegaron.
José, el padre, trabaja a una finca.
Estas son las naranjas malagueñas que le había dicho.
Hay muchas más personas aquí que en mi casa. Puedo entender mucho más y yo puedo hablar mucho más.
Ha mejorado un montón.
This is the perfect combination of student experience and speaking and family experience.
Estoy lista, pero no quiero salir.
Cariño con él, muy buen muchacho.
Mi cosa favorita es la familia, sí.
And this is what a teacher wants. It opens the world for them. And when we get back, they've moved so far beyond what the class level is, and they're so confident in their speaking.
Este viaje cambió mi vista del mundo. It really opens your eyes to something you could never really understand unless you go do it.
We always like to show this video, and this has had different iterations over the years of the video, and it's exactly like that. You know, the guides that they have are really great. They really engage the kids. They speak Spanish the whole time. Sometimes they don't even know that the guides actually speak English. So they speak so much Spanish, and then the students stay with the families, and I kid you not, every time there's tears, and it's just an amazing connection that the kids make, and it happens every time. So it's a really neat experience. Question?
What's your max group size for this?
There really isn't a max group size. As many students that are able to go can go. It's one of those things where the price is based upon a certain number of students going. we almost always partner with other schools. We tend to go to Costa Rica the last number of years, and we go in June when it's really popular for schools to go. So we'll be paired up with other schools, and I've got a number of teachers that I've traveled with over the years, and it works out really well each time.
And you're doing the 14-day, is that right?
The 14-day, yes.
And that's a little under 4,000, is that what I saw?
3,900? It's one of those trips that's a little more expensive, and that's why we started all the way back last year, and we're looking 2 years ahead, so that the students that can figure that out as far as that. This particular company, in our meeting on Monday night, said we have scholarships, and they always have had scholarships, and they basically said if anyone wants a scholarship, you can get it. All you have to do is just write an essay, and that's a $500 to $700 essay for them right there. So just beginning there, and then there's the fundraising, and yes, it's not a cheap trip, but international travel is not inexpensive, especially these days, and it comes with insurance and all of those type of things. The last time we traveled in 2019, we were going to travel. All of our students with this company that didn't have insurance, this company gave them all the insurance even though they didn't get it, and gave them all their money back except for a small portion of the deposit, just because they're so committed to the learning students. And I know there's other companies out there that didn't offer that and didn't give a trip back, and some companies folded too. So it's one of those things I feel really safe with, and it's a really great experience. It's not an inexpensive experience, but we do want to make it available for every student that can do it.
And you said there were 10 students interested last spring. Is it still, or 10 families?
Yes, so we're still at the very preliminary stages of finalizing it. In fact, the final price for 2024 is being finalized this month. And so we don't know exactly what that will cost, but the cost that was there is basically what it's going to be more or less, with the cost of inflation and that type of thing happening. So
it's tough for them to sell it too much before the board has approved the travel. So there hasn't been a huge push for sign up yet either. So.
Yeah, and we haven't had a sign up yet. That will happen in the next month. So.
It looks like a wonderful trip.
It's amazing. I've been on this particular trip probably 6 times myself, and it's absolutely amazing. And the kids that have done it, I think, I know Patty's daughter went on it way back in 2000 and
something I can't remember.
Yeah, probably like 4 or 5 or something like that. But yeah, so we've been doing this for so long, and it's always a wonderful trip.
Sarah Halverson's taking a group to the Dominican Republic, is that right?
Panama.
Panama, I'm sorry, Panama. When, is that also 24?
That would be this year.
Yeah.
That's this 23.
It would be a different year.
Okay.
We tried to, like, band and choir and Sarah's trip, and like
Right,
we tried to not all the same.
Well, that was my concern, is I couldn't remember when she was running that one. So.
And that's a similar trip in terms of the parts of the world, but it's a very different experience. It would be purely tourism. Yeah. This is a cultural immersion and language immersion trip, and I believe about twice as long as that trip, and Spanish-speaking guides that they're speaking Spanish. So it's a very much a similar trip, but a very different in a different way. So this would be for Spanish students.
Awesome. I make a motion to approve the Spanish trip.
I'll second that. Further discussion? All those in favor of approving the Spanish trip?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And then there was one on that side. One left to present.
Yep, we're up to 8.2 building maintenance projects.
Good evening, everyone. Kent Wyman. I've met all of you before, so buildings and grounds supervisor. Jill and I have went over things. I'll start off. You guys got the same thing I have up there. If you guys have noticed coming into this building, there's some repairs to the front of the building that we are going to look at this summer. We put $15,000 aside for tuck point on the front of the building. We had a company come around and kind of look at the rest of the building, and it seemed okay, but that very front entrance has been taking a beating. You probably noticed. We also have listed on here about $45,000 district-wide for flooring. Instead of going building to building and picking classrooms, we were kind of lumping it together. We still try to pick 2 classrooms per elementary and then see where we're at with the middle school, high school. Middle school, high school doesn't have much carpet left, so. We budgeted $5,000 for interior doors and hardware. That's kind of a general. $6,000 for painting, another general. Ceiling tile replacement. These are kind of yearly expenditures. On to the next page,
Kent,
30,000.
before you dig into the buildings, would you just let the board know the process that you and Jill use to identify the list?
So we usually have a pretty large list, and then we go around to each building and meet with the principals at the building, and they kind of pick projects that they would like to see, and then we look at the 5-10-year plan and see what's really fallen in line, and then we kind of, you know, there's certain things that popped up this year, and I'll get to that. Certain things just happened that we didn't foresee. So one of them's coming up here with the high school roof.
Thank you. I just wanted them to know that it's not just you deciding and then
Yeah, so we kind of have a list of things that reach out 5 to 10 years of what we want to get done in the district, and then we have each building's needs or wants that we kind of lay in line, and then, like I said, the projects that come on. So the exterior doors to the gym in the basement of Forest Street, everything looks so nice down there except for those 3 sets of doors. We estimated that at about $30,000 or about $10,000 a set. Door in the LMC, downstairs door, oh, this is flooring downstairs at Forest Street. If you guys have been in Forest Street, the upstairs flooring has not been finished. We've kind of been waiting on Swanson's to see where we come out with that, but we're going to continue that new flooring through the whole school. I think it would tie everything together really nice. And it's in pretty rough shape after all the construction last summer. We also have in here, if you've been at Forest Street, the sidewalk took a beating last summer. We were kind of waiting to see what got replaced with the Myron construction project, and then we would take over after. Well, there's quite a chunk in front of the building that needs to be replaced. $150,000 budgeted for the roof at Gebhardt. This is the, what do I want to say, 1995 edition. So back by the food pantry, that has been leaking for years. We've fixed the problem about 5 times in the last 10 years, but it's just time to replace it. Thomas noticed and told me. We have...
Kent, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but notice that the Gebhardt piece, we are suggesting that we dig into our Fund 46, our capital maintenance project, and dollars. Again, we started putting end-of-year funds in there years ago. We had to wait 5 years before we could start expending them. That 5 years has more than elapsed, and so we are suggesting we tackle some of these larger projects with those funds.
And I think the Fund 46 is what we dipped into when we were doing the theater project, and then didn't we get refunded about half that from London?
We definitely got funded half of it. I am uncertain if that came from Fund 46,
okay.
So I would need Jill to confirm.
Okay. So if you guys remember, we've tried to, like, back-to-back funds, $250,000, $250,000 for the high school roof, and then we can do a huge chunk at a time. Last year we had about $370,000 of roofing done, where we were hoping for $500,000. Kind of limited what we did with all that foot traffic on the roof this last summer, and so we still have the leaks in the hallway by Tech Ed, or the wood shop, auto shop. That hallway still leaks, so they replaced the roof over the shops, but the hallway part didn't get done, and with all that foot traffic, it's been leaking pretty bad. Luke can attest to that. So we are hoping to dip in and just do a smaller section. It's nice when we can back them up, because then, you know, they only have to come and do everything one time, but
and
I just don't think we can wait.
The high school roof is not Fund 46, just Gebhardt, correct?
Yep, just Gebhardt would be Fund 46. Moving on, we have $60,000 budgeted for a new dishwasher in the remodel at the high school. That is out of Fund 50. That is Connie, Miss Helsted's.
Nope.
No, sorry, Connie Sievers. Kind of got, I don't know if you want to describe how the fund kind of built up.
Sure. So Connie Sieber, if you recall, Fund 50 is the separate food service fund, and when there is debt in food service, you cannot pay it out of Fund 50. It has to come out of Fund 10, thus the whole angel funds to repay student debt. But Fund 50, she did a ton of food service during the COVID and all of those times, and almost all of it was federal programs that were completely cost-free. So she got a lot of reimbursement and not a lot of charges. And so she has built up her Fund 50, which can only be spent in Fund 50. So she has got herself in a position where she can do some of the remodel and buy new equipment for the kitchens out of her own fund without impacting capital maintenance dollars or Fund 46, which is a fantastic scenario to be in.
Yeah, so the walk-in freezer at the high school that needs replacement, it runs during the winter, but it's not going to run through next summer again. So we dipped into Connie's fund for that as well. So
How much?
quite handy.
Do you know how much money is in Fund 50?
I do.
That's another Jill question.
Yep.
Same question on Fund 46.
Yep.
Just throw numbers out.
Right.
Not gonna. We're not gonna, Nicole.
I know we've looked at those. I was just curious.
Another thing we've noticed after all the construction at the high school is there's some areas that just look really tired. The tech ed hallway, obviously we need to replace the ceiling tiles in there. The stair treads when you go up, now that everything's new, the old stair treads, they just like hit you right in the eye. We're gonna paint the walls. I know that's that block wall, but it's kind of that glass block, so we have to, it's a little more prep work to get that ready for painting. And then just hiding some of the cables and stuff in the hallway. We just like to freshen that hallway up. The next item is at the middle school. There are, I think we counted 17 windows in the LMC and the 2 science rooms upstairs. There's small box windows that kind of look out onto the flat, and they're the old wood frames, and they'd all started to rot out. We wanted to do it last year. We just kind of ran out of funds. We budgeted $50,000 for work on the pool. Now that would not be done this summer. That would be for the next summer. We would hold off on those funds. We're hoping, it says local grant or Fund 46 difference. I've mentioned this multiple times. We're on borrowed time in that pool between the filtration system and the boilers that are upstairs heating the pool. We're over 30 years now, so we're running on borrowed time.
That's why I'm saying that pool is still all original, and it is there. I don't know if you're all aware the hot tub is no more. That it sits empty because the cost for repair was just, and it's not something that the district utilizes. But the pool is very heavily utilized between swim lessons and our swim team.
So this is the filtration end of things, but it's not. The boilers are phase 2 of this.
And plumbing is more than just the filtration. It's like the pipes that connect, right? When
And all our shutoffs are pretty much worn out, and we've kind of got an archaic system running there. I mean, it's running, but it's past time.
So other numbers you probably don't have. Do you have a ballpark on what boilers that system would go for right now?
So no, and I know that the project is going to, I'm going to assume running upwards of $200,000 when we get to it, and that's why we're kind of looking, hopefully, for a grant. And you have to apply for that grant this year to get it next year. And I know that getting people in to do this pool work, even if we wanted to do it this summer, it wouldn't happen. We have a window of when club swims over and swim lessons start. It's about 3 months, and we would have to get them in, I would say, what is that? March, April, May. So we have a 3-month window. So that would have to be planned out for the following year.
You're thinking 200,000 inclusive of this 250,
I
or
think we're just
200,000
kind
on
of,
top of this?
I think we're just setting that 50,000 aside, so we are looking, so we have something pocketed for next year. Theater door, that's an exterior door that's just rotted out. The middle school playground up top, we're sick of weeding the basketball court, so we would love to crack fill and seal that. And then the middle school theater, the floor has really gotten rough in the last 30 years as well. So like Maryland School of Dance is kind of hesitant to perform. So many slivers coming through the floor. We've sanded that, filled it, repainted multiple times, but it just won't stick. So there's a roll-up flooring, actually a theater flooring that would go out on top of it. It kind of comes in like 12-foot rolls. That's kind of what we're looking at. And then it's got the numbers up here. 678 is our grand total, minus 150 from the Fund 46, 60 from Fund 50. And we basically come up with the exact same numbers we had last year.
And then that Linda Field House payment, just as a reminder to everybody, we pay for the custodial fees when they are cleaning the portion that we use, as well as utilities. And so we set aside $58,000 each year. It has not cost us all of that. It typically comes in lower than that, but per our agreement, that's how much we agreed to set aside.
Is there any questions on any of the items? Me and Jill have talked about, and with Shelley too, it's kind of like we've got all this stuff brand new and we just want to get everything perfect next summer because the last summer was, it was rough.
And so, like I shared about the transportation department, Kent has had one heck of a summer. My goodness, when you think about all those projects going, he's in constant demand to all of those people that are here working. Everybody wants a piece of his time. And then the vandalism and the work that he had to put in above and beyond that. He's got a fantastic crew. He's just, I like to think that good people draw other really good people to them. And so Kent's got some really dynamic people on his team that just have such a positive impact on the district. And I think that comes from his leadership and his role modeling, and just certainly gets frustrated some days, but never tells you, nope, can't do that. It's a, oh, that'll take something. We'll get that. That'll take something. He'll give you a funny story along with it, but in the end, you always end up with the project completed. So Ken just does fantastic work for the district. Even if he was wearing a black Vikings cap.
That's because I was in mourning today.
Any questions for Ken?
That needs approval?
It does. And so just for the board's, I put down, did we use Fund 46 for the theater work thus far? How much is in Fund 50 and how much is in Fund 46? Those are answers that I will send out to the board as soon as I get them collected from Joe.
I make a motion to approve the facility updates as presented.
I'll second.
Further discussion, questions for Ken? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate your time.
All right, so that is all the items we moved up. So we will go back now to 5.1, implement weather and school calendar. I had emailed Shelley Friday in amongst all this and just asked for kind of an update on minutes and hours and weather has not been kind, I think were the words he used to us this year so far.
Right. So it's highly unusual to be this point in January and already have used as much time as we have. Highly unusual. I'll be honest with you, today really threw us for a loop. Had we done more driving, we probably would not have come in today. The buses, we had 3 of them that could not move. They were just on ice, and we had to call the township chair people to ask them to bring somebody with sand, and 2 of them responded immediately on our way, and they came and they dropped salt and sand. One of them said he starts in a couple hours, so that wasn't super helpful, but Chris Williams, who is another one of those individuals I was talking about on Ken's team, drove out with sand and helped that bus get some traction. It really took a lot of people by surprise. When we get up and drive at 4 is when we usually start checking. We've got 3 people now that go out and drive, myself, Christy, and Joey Gilbertson, and then talking to lots and lots of other districts. Today there was 0 text chatter from other districts, and got up, looked at the temperature and thought we were okay, but boy, oh boy, was it icy. I've reached out to the county and to some of our township chair people, and they said, many of them have said that they've already used their budgets for this year for sand and salt, and I very respectfully said that if we use all of our heating oil, we have to take from someplace else to be able to continue to heat our buildings, and January you can't just decide that you're done. And so I'm hopeful that that partnership can grow, because there have been times that we've been stuck because those side roads just don't ever get treated. They just don't. And so it freezes and then it thaws and then it refreezes, and it is just treacherous is the best word for it. There was a township vehicle that had to back down a hill so it could drop sand on its way down today in order to go save one of our buses. I mean, it was bad. So I apologized profusely to the drivers and shared my appreciation with them, because it was a tough day for them. I heard one of our neighboring districts had 3 buses slide into the ditch today. Nobody was hurt, thankfully, but 3 buses slowly slid in. So
And just,
Mother
I
Nature.
just think of them trying to stop to pick up kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yep. So honestly, something that we brainstormed quickly this morning that certainly can't be put into place right now, but because each driver could take their routes, and there would be probably 70% of their routes that would be, well, maybe 70 is high, maybe 60% of their routes that they could do on most days. But the 40% is so rural that it is just really hard. So we honestly talked about, for next summer, when the routes are all done, do we have the driver say, these are the areas that are just chronically bad, and then do we run our buses, and we have to tell those families, so you live on we're going to call it a back road, and then we could say, we're running our buses only on the main roads, the buses will not be on the back roads. If you can get your child to school, excellent, or we'll pick up at these locations. But we just talked about coming up with a plan next year, but all that needs to be, Christy was like, can we get that done today? I don't really think so, because those families need to know what list they're on and all that stuff. So anyway, ways to help it in the future. Where are we at right now? Just a reminder, the state no longer requires days, they require minutes. And so we started the season with 6 hours or 6 days, and like 4 hours was our lowest school other than Forest Street. And because of the vandalism at Forest Street, we are writing a waiver for that building for the instructional minutes. Because of the vandalism, we're very confident that that will be approved. So this was just a sample of what that minute calculation looks like. They report to Marty, and she counts how many instructional minutes exist during each school day. So from bell to bell, then you have to take off any recess minutes over 30 minutes. You have to subtract the minutes that you're out for lunch. Middle school, high school, you have to subtract your passing time. So it really tries to nail down what the instructional minutes are for the day, not how long kids are here. So I just want you to recognize it's not, we drop off at 7:40 and we pick up at 3:10. It is a lot more, what time does class start in the morning, not what time do we let kids in the building. And so that's how we end up with our minutes. You can see down in the bottom of that sheet the required or the minimum number of minutes. So we started with the 6 days plus a few hours. We've now used 4 days and a 2-hour late start. And so that gives us 1 day and a little bit. So I took the opportunity when I was communicating with families last week about something else to ask them to give me any feedback on this. And overwhelmingly, people are not interested in virtual or e-learning days. You see if you watch the news when they do all the closings, there's a lot of districts who have decided that it's a virtual learning day. And so what that means in many districts, it looks different in every district, but they'll put a few assignments out there and kids grab them and do them at some point in time, and then they're required to turn them in. Our team wasn't very excited about them because the connectivity is a challenge. We know that a lot of kids are in childcare when there's a inclement weather day. We know that there's a lot of times that older siblings are taking care of younger siblings on those days. There's sometimes groups of families that one of them will say, well, I'm off today, I'll take all of the kids, right? And so it just is not feasible. Parents confirmed that 0 parents said that they wanted virtual or e-learning days. I asked what their wishes were for making up that, and it wasn't widespread. I bet I heard from about 30 parents that responded, which that was pretty good for that day. And they all would prefer, the majority were to add minutes onto each day. And so if you think about that, we're not at the halfway point of the year yet. And so we'll say we have about 80 school days left. So 2 minutes onto 80 school days, we're not talking about keeping the kids here till 5 p.m., right? So you add 2 or 3 minutes onto 80 days, suddenly you've got hours that you would be able to backfill that. The second most frequently requested way from families was either our 3-hour early releases or our Friday early releases to start whittling away at some of those. One person said, could we take days from spring break? But there was one person that suggested that. So another topic that I want to talk to you about, in our handbook over the last couple of years, we have talked about what staff expectations are on snow days. And I would say that when I talk to my colleagues, as well as others reaching out to districts around us, that concept or idea has really changed over the years. It used to be that we expected minute per minute makeup. I think some of us remember that year that we had 10 snow days and we had spreadsheets of every color coding and everything, trying to get all of the staff minutes made up. Angie Tamke has taken on coordination of our support staff. So the expectations for support staff, they have options. They can either come into work. More of our support staff live locally, so they are more able to travel in on a snow day, so they can come to work that day. They can make up their hours anytime between then and the end of the school year, or they can stay home and they log into a Zoom meeting with Angie at 8:30 in the morning, and she announces the topic for the day and gets them all started with the login information, whatever. And there's some virtual modules that they are required to do, and then there is homework afterwards. So to be honest, our support staff are the ones that we struggle the most with professional development, because they're here 6.75 hours, most of them, and so there are some on working with kids with autism. There are some on, Angie, do you have other topics for me quick?
Self-regulation skills, looking at function of behavior, supporting students in the classroom. They're all very specific to students with unique needs, and how the adults can better support them in the classroom.
Excellent. And so they have that option as well, that it can be done that day, and then they hand in some kind of a completion to Angie afterwards. And so Angie's gotten really positive feedback from the support staff that they feel like it's very relevant to them, as opposed to sitting in some other learning that wasn't necessarily targeted at them. For our teachers, the first 3 days per handbook were considered personal prep time, and so they had those days to work from home, work from school, wherever they wanted to do it, but it was their personal prep time. Then that's as far as the handbook went. The admin team had conversation about it, and we all agreed that the number one ask from teachers is always time. Time to work in their PLC teams or time for personal prep. We have decided that moving forward this year, until we have to start making up minutes with kids, that those snow days would be, they gather as a PLC team. So each building principal then did like a staff meeting, a Zoom, I don't remember the morning time, but a time in the morning where all of their teachers are expected to gather with them, and they check in, they talk about what their teams are going to work on, and then a block of time where they all have to meet electronically with their PLC team. Different levels are working on different things, whether it is their curricular guarantees, whether it is some of the standards-based grading stuff. All of the big projects that each of the PLC teams are tasked with doing, we're asking them to engage in that work collaboratively on those snow days. And then at the end of the day, not quite the end of the day, mid-afternoon, they gather again as a whole staff with their principal, and they do a share out of the work that was completed. So we've had one of those days. How was that received by staff?
Yeah, we did it in high school, and for me it was super meaningful. I think Kim would agree, because we were able to, after we met with them initially, we sent everybody out to work. We asked that all PLCs send us a Google Meet link so that we can pop in, and wasn't checking on anybody, but it was just great to have conversations with staff, because we don't get to do that all the time, you know. And that was a day where I talked with staff virtually all day long, and it was really, I know that our staff really appreciated the time, and it felt good and it felt respectful. And also we know that they were working really hard.
And so if the PLCs are that 1 hour on Friday, the principals can't be at all of them. So if the PLCs are working different times throughout the day, they were able to pop into several of them. So that is our thoughts moving forward for staff. And when we get to our handbook conversations, that is what we would like to change that language to. And the next piece of that is, it is a very real thing to have to continue to re-recruit our staff, right? Look at some of the, Jen Dahl, she drives over an hour every single day and has for almost 30 years because this is a place that she wants to do her work. There are a lot of districts who are allowing a very minimal expectation of staff on their virtual days, and our staff are very aware of it. And so if we start counting minutes, that doesn't feel very respectful to them either. And so we felt like this re-recruiting would be giving them the time and the trust and the professionalism that you know the work of your team. I'm here as your principal to help support you and to provide any guidance or tools or anything that you need, but we trust that you're doing the work. And the end result is everyone knows the where we're at on these big initiatives and where we're expected to be. So
I think that's respectful. You know how much time teachers put in outside of the school day for, you know, that
Absolutely. So if they're sitting in their pajamas and they're Zooming with their team for, a couple hours, that's fantastic, right? They're that much closer to getting some of those tasks done. Does anybody have any concerns with this process thus far, or what our plans are moving forward?
When will we start adding minutes?
When we get to the point where we need to. So that means another full day and whatever minutes are out of that to our late start. And sometimes it could be as simple as, if it was just one building, we would shorten their recess by 2 minutes or something like that. So if you think about where we are in January, a few minutes every day really gives you an awful lot of impact.
I don't like to be the gloomy cloud, but I just don't see us making it through.
In our one day and a few
Our
hours.
one day.
That's why I wondered if you want to start adding it now.
When we're
Get ahead of it.
all right. We don't need action on anything on that. 5.2 public comment. There are none. Next is 5.3 open enrollment class size.
Excellent. So as usual, we are looking for your approval to move forward in a similar fashion to what we've done before. We do not have any caps on our grade levels, any of our grade levels. We feel like there is wiggle room across the board. And our special education students, I think I put in the notes that the process is, even if we say all of our caseloads are full, we can't just carte blanche tell a special education student no because they have an IEP. We have to request that IEP and look at the services that are afforded that student in the IEP, and then we have to look at our staff members at that specific grade level and determine whether we have space to absorb that student or not. I can think of one case where we did do that because it was very minimal services, and then I have several examples of students that we did have to say no to because the services were more extensive than our staff could absorb.
One was a student who had been one of our students for a number of years and had just moved out of district, and it's his senior year. And so we were like, no way, we approved that one.
And that one does need approval by the board.
Make a motion to approve the open enrollment class size data procedure.
second.
Further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-4. Those are the WASB resolutions. Those were in your packet last month and this month. Again, we can, as a board, take action on these and recommend them. And remind me, Tom, you are a delegate, correct? Mm-hmm. For Tom to vote on those. I think one of them is very timely, the high-cost transportation aid, which is part of why this, wondering where we're at on some of that, and I know we spend a ton of money on transportation because we're a huge geographic district.
I'd like just for us to remind ourselves that voting yes or no on these does not make it. So, I mean, this is just to guide WASB on how to advocate in the legislation.
If we don't take board action, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom is able to vote however he sees fit after
We
hearing the...
can either way, but I would suggest let him listen to the debate that happens and decide what's best for our district.
Mm-hmm.
Is my recommendation. Unless anyone has any issues with any of them that they really feel strongly yes or no about.
The only one I had an issue with the voter education one. I think the civics is they want to add the resolution to add the language voter education into the existing language of basically the well-rounded education. So that was the only thing I had, and I know it's up to Tom because it's delicate. So
Are you against adding voting?
I am against that language. They want to add the lines of voter education as part of that because
it's part of civics.
It's part of well, it's not part of civics. It's in addition to civics the way it's written out anyway.
Which one is that?
This 2302.
So
it says
there's already an existing resolution.
Yeah, it's an amendment to an existing resolution. Yes. That was all I had. My answer was. But I assume there'll be debate on the floor.
Looking at the rationale, I mean, it's educating students about the responsibility ensuring that our graduates are career, college, and community civic ready. I mean, I agree with that, the education about how to vote, how to go about voting, how to register, how to be involved in it is an important thing, which I think we do already.
Right, I think that civics is, I mean, that's what civics is it's our relationship with the government, people in the government. And that's what I was saying, so that, just to say that, those two words, I think it's just redundant, and it can be misinterpreted, I think, in these days and age too. So.
And maybe not all school districts include that in there.
Yeah, and I know that these are just recommendations for the deputies to be proposed to legislators, I know that too, so.
So, does anyone want to take any action on this? Otherwise, we can move on.
Tom, you can vote your conscience.
Thank you. All right. We are on to 5.5, Community Engagement Committee update. Here, Joey, you and I.
I can. We met the committee met on Tuesday, January 3rd in preparation for our last community conversation, or probably last, which would have been the 11th. Because school was not in session, we moved it to Wednesday, the January 25th at Red Creek, so if anybody's interested, at 6 o'clock. Our purpose when we get to that meeting is to get a common direction for our committee. Right now we have like 4 separate little areas going, and we're hoping we can move it in perhaps into one direction. Nick, did you have anything else or Brad about that?
No, that's a pretty good summary.
Yeah, I guess there's just some ideas of getting more community involvement and parent involvement in school and volunteerism and actually during the day, and then extracurricular activities too. So.
Right.
No action needed on that. 6.2 employment recommendations, and none of these need for approval. Any questions on those? Then we're on to 7.3, student success report.
The dynamic media, multimedia presenter over there is up.
We had shared earlier that we had received additional out-of-school time funding through a grant that Brandon Jar and myself and Christy Roush had worked on. And with that, we're able to do some great things that are going to be helping our students in that out-of-school time area. We had some themes that we were really working on, is that we wanted to think about our staff and our teachers and the fact that they are putting in all of these hours, right? And so what are the things that we can do to make this more sustainable? What are the things that we can do to make this job so it's not all that extra time out of the time that they're putting in, right? So we opted to add additional support staff member, and so that person will be going from 6.75 hours to 8 hours. That we just put that out today to look at. And additionally, we are created a stipend for teachers created a space where teachers can create meaningful activities for each grade level in ELA and math. So what's happening is we have several high school students that are coming over, which is fantastic and awesome. But we would need some help from teachers to ensure that what they're doing is really good, solid activities in those areas. And then very excitedly, we're going to be able to move the middle school students. They're currently taking the bus from the middle school over to Red Creek for after school programming, and we are going to be able to stay at the middle school, and we're hoping that increases the number of students that we are able to serve there at the middle school. We have put out the all call looking for middle school and high school teachers, and we've had some fantastic responses. So just more testament to how our teachers are willing to put in that time and do that work for kids. So we're looking at flexibility of scheduling for our teachers. So maybe they might only want to work 1 or 2 days a week, that type of thing. And then we're also going to be doing something at the high school where we have a lot to think about. So we're not exactly sure we're going to be able to develop that further. Initially, we were thinking we could do it 1 day a week, but wow, there's been so many people, maybe we can do more. And so then we've also, in thinking about our people, we want to take care of them, that whole idea of rehiring. And then what they're doing is really, it's a lot to work full day and then come in and work 2 to 3 hours again that night. And so we put an incentive. So if you work, where is that at? If you work for 20 hours, you will get a $125 bonus. So we figured out a way to keep track of that, and we'll be able to work through. excitingly, and just don't want to miss this, is that for the middle school and possibly the high school too, we're going to be able to do some morning tutoring. And so that's kind of nice. So for students that want to get there at 7, they can go inside, do some activities that way. So with a lot of this out of school time work, we're really trying to also expand engagement, right? And think about ways that we can engage students with our district. And so we're thinking about, is there possible ways of expanding counseling services? We're thinking about different ways of Native American cultural activities and mentorship and increased community involvement. So coming up, you hear it here first, February 15th, we are going to be having a family night. Blast has partnered with the Title VI Committee and Jackson in Action, and we're looking for more partnerships. It's a family night going to be for all buildings, and there's going to be food served, like soup and fry bread. It's going to be at the Lunda Park, and there's going to be sledding, and there is going to be snow snakes. And if you don't know what snow snakes are, I really recommend that you Google that and look at that activity. It's an indigenous activity that is done in winter. And snow painting, and the playground will also be open, so, among other things to come. So keep an eye out for that.
So that's February 15th?
February 15th from 4 to 6.
I wondered if the $24 an hour was attractive enough to get teachers, but it sounds like when you can work at Culver's, I wondered.
So to be honest, that was part of our thinking in the incentivizing working multiple times. So when we don't have this additional out of school time grant and we just have our usual 21st century after school grant, $24 an hour is the rate for that after school work. And we have a waiting list of kids because there's not enough staff that want to work that after school time. So it felt worse to increase the rate while we have this grant, and then afterwards put the rate down to what we could afford again. So instead we're trying to incentivize, it's essentially a rate increase, but it's incentivizing them working. Yeah, so it's messy, but we are very much trying to encourage staff. And so that leads me to the next part of the conversation that we've been kind of back and forth and unsure what to do. When we first received this grant, I thought it could also expand summer programming. That is not the case. There is a separate pot of dollars with the state that is just for summer programming. And it is very much like this, that it comes in fast and furious for 2 summers and then it's gone. So it's 18 months is what we have these funds for. And to be honest, I feel very strongly that we are exhausting our staff with all these extra programs and extra stuff. And you get the same people always willing to do it because they think it's good for kids. But how much more do we really want them to teach as opposed to take some time during the summer to recharge their own batteries? Because if the programming is there and they know that families want to take part in it, they will say, I could probably do a week or 2, right? And I just feel like if we can run our traditional summer school programming the way we have the last couple of years, we are engaging lots of kids and families through that means with staff who are very used to that 2 weeks and make it all happen. I just am not sure that our capacity for staff, for coordination, and even family interest, I'm just not sure it's there. So at this point, we had decided we weren't going to apply for that because again, for the next grant cycle, we have these funds, we have our other ESSER funds, like we still have all those funds. If anything would expand beyond September of 24, we'd be all over it, but none of the funds extend beyond September of 2024. So right now we're not planning on applying for that summer programming grant. If anyone feels very strongly about it, we certainly have had people say that they're willing to do the work and write the grant. I'm just not sure that we needed to widely expand our summer programming. But if you feel differently, by all means.
I have a question about the tutoring outside of the hours, like the 7 o'clock. Is there a possibility where kids can come in for their Title I work and so they're not pulled out of class during that early time or late time? Or what are you thinking of?
So Title I is so right now we have that target time where all the kids that need those interventions are being pulled from that target time. So they're not being pulled from the core instruction areas already. The way it is spelled out across the elementary, there's a different grade level that has target time that fills up those interventionists full day. So when those kids are getting their intervention through the Title I or the reading specialist, Title I teacher, other kids are getting their enrichment or intervention from other teachers at that time. So that changing of scheduling has eliminated that I'm getting pulled out of science class to go get my reading intervention.
Yeah, when we were dreaming, that was the dream, like, right? Like, that's what we really want, like, our part of our vision when we started, and then just the practical terms, like, we haven't been able to get all of that to really work.
And not everyone would be able to come from
at those
Delay
times.
to be part of the program. Okay.
And that's always the other
I
thing, that
get
when
it.
we talk about summer programming, are we gonna provide transportation?
Right.
Because then that would take an awful lot of the cost, and we have a shortage of drivers, and we, you know, so. But again, if people feel strongly about it, we have people willing to write the grant. I just feel like we are short-term okay with funds. If there's anything that stretched beyond that deadline, that's a different story. All right.
If there's nothing further on that, 8.1 monthly expenditures. Point all your questions at Nicole tonight.
I can smile at you.
It looks good.
That's what I got.
You did a nice job.
So we do need to take action.
I make a motion to approve the monthly expenditures.
Second it.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8.3 facility update.
Sure, just wanted to let you know that the work at Forest Street continues forward. The Walsh Masonry came in during break. They did a really nice job, a section of that great big wall with the carved in block. They cut off the face of, I'm gonna say like 8 blocks right at floor level. So they cut off the face, ground down a little bit, put new block face on there, and then redid the grouting around it, and it really made a significant difference. It's not painted yet, so you don't get to see all of that, but it really looks nice. They did a lot of the bullnosing in the windowsills and looks great. They can't get all the way down to the floor because their router hits up against, so there's like a 2-inch more pointed angle, and then it goes to the rounded, but that is uniform, and so it looks okay. And what other piece? There were some of their grout lines that were pretty wonky, and so they just ground them out and then put in fresh, and so when that is painted, it's going to look much better. So they have a lot of work to do this summer. We just wanted them to come in and show us what the repairs would look like before we would authorize them to continue, and they really did a nice job. We did a walkthrough with the architect and the construction management company, and Kent and I, and we think it's going to be okay. The masonry will be okay in the end. There are some walls that we've already installed like smart boards over. We're going to take those off the wall so that when and if that building exists without a great big screen on that wall, it's not sketchy masonry behind it. And so they will come in, and I bet they have a month's worth of work with the amount of block that they have to cut the face off. We've been very directive with that has to be in June, because we do not want that staff in August tripping over anything construction related. We want the building spit shine, yes, very much. That once we'd like that done. So that is looking great. The flooring, as Kent alluded to, they're making some progress. The cuts where the two colors come together, those they've come in and done a lot of reworking on those. So they're making progress. The problem is still the edging. So if that long hallway downstairs and in the cafeteria area around the edges, it just has not bound. You can go and you tap and you can hear it, and then it didn't stick on the edges. And so that means where the two meet, it catches dirt all the time when they, mop it or anything, so then it looks filthy every time there's a tile. So we are still not okay with that. They said they are going to be there this week, and Friday we're supposed to go take a look and see if we're moving forward or if we're going to ask them to tear it all up. So we'll see what they can accomplish this week.
So we're looking at a late spring open house.
I don't think so. I would say fall, because
Fall.
that masonry looks terrible, and so I don't know that we'd want to invite people in until that's done. I feel like that would be, so I when we have those open houses, which I absolutely love, invariably we have construction people that come in, and some of them are very complimentary, and some are like, oh, looks like they cut a corner there, right? So when we know there's some pretty significant expensive flaws, it feels odd to invite people in as opposed to just saying, we're gonna wait till fall and do some kind of a kickoff when it's all repainted, because where they changed that block, it's not painted now, it's concrete, and then the rest of the wall is painted. It looks rough. All of those, every window's got concrete showing where they've done the bulldozing, so it's rough. So I would suggest we wait because they're coming back. And then we are at the point where we are starting to release some of the retainer funds that we had, and we are hoping in the next 2 weeks we can finally get at the bottom line of what our contingency funds are that would come back to the district. Just as a reminder, we were hoping for it to be much larger than I think it's going to be. There was that huge lead paint abatement that we did not foresee at forestry. That was about $200,000. We ended up having to pay for that out of district funds. We were hoping that there would be enough contingency to cover that. There's no way it's going to cover that piece. So we'll know for sure. The insurance claim has been resubmitted with all of now we have all the pieces in, and the insurance company is, rightfully so, they're challenging a lot of the time that was spent on it. And when you think about, and that's not billing for any of Jill or Kent's time, but the B&B electricians who were there all weekend with those breakers, that's time and a half on weekends. And so the insurance company now looking at it saying, well, why did it have to happen on weekends? Because we were trying to get kids in the building. So it's just taking an awful lot of time to go through that. I would just say that Jill's done an exceptional job with the record keeping of all that stuff. And yeah, it's just been a lot. So that is currently pending.
We should probably have another update on that when accounting gets finalized.
Absolutely. Yep.
Do you have that? All right. That's it for the facility.
Correct.
Next is 8.5, first reading of all of those policies. And I don't know if you covered that. So a lot of this was just cleaning up, deleting policies and consolidating this into one larger policy rather than many smaller policies.
The only one that I would pull out of that conversation is the animals on school grounds. That was something that we felt we did not have a policy on, and the questions had arisen several times, and so we felt like it was time to do that. In the past, the only reference to animals on school grounds was under our student allergy policy, and so we just went through and specified a service dog versus a therapy animal versus a emotional support animal versus a pet that is visiting at school. The one change for all staff would be that anytime a teacher has a classroom pet, we're just asking for notification. As I said, we run into that sometimes when the custodian goes into the room and suddenly there's an animal in a cage, or sometimes an empty cage, and they're unsure if there was supposed to be an animal in it. So some kind of a registration, I guess, if you have live animals in your classroom. So it also spelled out that service animals through Americans with Disabilities Act, we can ask very few questions. We can't ask about the training. We can't ask about vaccinations or any of those things. We can just ask what task the animal is trained to do. If it is a therapy dog, we can ask therapy animal. We can ask what therapy program that animal has graduated from. We can ask about vaccinations. We can ask about all that stuff. We took the stance that we would not support emotional support animals in school. That is not something that is it's not ADA required, and so we took the stance that it would create an awful lot of coordination if that were possible for all students and staff, and so we said no. And then the other part was the animal visitors. So the rest are cleanups.
Again, this is first read, so no action necessary tonight unless there's a discussion. All right, second reading will be our next meeting. Moving on to the 9 series, we have meeting minutes from December 19th. January 2nd. Those minutes are not done yet, correct?
They're not in there, sorry.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 19th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 9.2 District Admin Report.
I just have one thing, and then Andrew's going to give a Gebhardt presentation. So that's the Canva, perfect. Just one thing that was suggested, and I'm just interested in your thoughts and whether it's something that you want us to further pursue. You may have seen that we recently lost two very, very, very long-time coaches and from our community and our schools. And then there was some conversation about the fact that the Sam Young Gymnasium was certainly named after Sam Young, but our community very seldom goes in there because most of our varsity JV events are held at the field house. And so during a conversation, Luke actually had brought it up, are we interested in perhaps calling it the Sam Young Court in the Lunda Fieldhouse so that the name is something that the community experiences? I've talked to Woody Meyer, and he gets so excited over all the memorabilia and history and all the stuff that he has collected, and it's in his basement and a room over at Gebhardt. And he's like, I'd love to put up a display. He goes, but nobody goes to the high school. And I said, well, we're actually talking about that. And so I don't know if that is something that the board is interested in. I feel like because it's in the Lunda Center, we'd have to have a conversation with that board. But then the other comment was, are we interested in Warren Rosine Field in Tiger Stadium with the Hoffman track around it, or is that not something that we're interested in doing? I just wanted to throw that out there because while we certainly appreciate a lot of our coaches, and some have been here a long time, those two really, really stand out in their years of service and impact. So not something we need to answer now, but I just was curious if you wanted us to talk more about it or pursue either of those.
I think there's a session that school board can on that. Did you see that?
I did. I didn't look at those sessions yet. So.
I think there's a session on naming rights. So.
Well, there's an awful lot of name. We actually did a policy about financial.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. We're not going to ask either of those families for money.
No.
It's the only thing that seems kind of weird to me. If you'd have like two basketball courts named after Sam Young, it'd be kind of a little confusing, and it seemed like maybe someday that the other one, some other person, or would be, you know, appropriate for them or something too. So
it just feels unfortunate that the community doesn't come into the high school near as much now that we're very lucky to have the field house. I don't mean to say that like it's a bad thing. But
JV games and C games are in there.
C games are, yeah.
JV too.
Sometimes.
Friday night was.
Right, because it was a double header, both boys and girls. Yeah.
I went to it, the door was locked.
Yeah, I think it's I don't disagree, Nick, that it is kind of awkward to have, we're gonna need to rename the gymnasium then something else if we're naming the court. But I feel like that is a nice way to honor two individuals who gave a lot to the students of this community.
I wouldn't be opposed to the idea.
So are you interested in going to that session?
I can, one of us can. We can make sure somebody
We can
gets
take
it.
a look at it if that's what it's about. I just saw it listed.
That'd be good information maybe for further discussion.
I had other ones.
And then Andrew Stampy will present on Gebhardt.
Hello, I'm Angie Tamke, Director of Special Education and Pupil Services. My office is in the Gebhardt building, and so I oversee the programs that are under that roof. It's my second year with the district, and prior to this I was a special education teacher, primarily for students with emotional behavioral disabilities, so I fit right in at Gebhardt. Go ahead, Nicole. Currently at Gebhardt, we have what is our elementary, well, when I came on board, it was just called, people just called it the elementary EPD program. It didn't really have a name. And our teacher this year really thought it needed to have its own name. So she's trying out Gebhardt Essentials. I don't know how everybody feels about that or what they think about it or even how that whole naming thing works. If we can just give it a name without talking to anybody about it, but that's what she's kind of wanting to call it right now. And then our WIN program and our Phoenix program. So I'm gonna start off just telling you a little bit about the Gebhardt Essentials program. Currently we have 2 full-time students with extremely high needs. Both of those students do require one-to-one adult assistance. In addition to their time with the special education teacher. And then we have 2 part-time students who come to us from Red Creek at different times of the day. Those students, we meet with their teams. With Red Creek, we've done a lot of alignment with the Red Creek staff and making sure that we've got open communication and common expectations, and so that when kids get transferred to Gebhardt for additional support, that there's a plan for them to go back and goals that they need to meet in order to be able to go back to their classroom that they came from at Red Creek, or Forest Street would be a possibility as well, but right now it's just Red Creek. We are transitioning 2 middle school students back to the middle school. We kept the middle schoolers because one of them was with us prior to and didn't seem to have the maturity level to move on to the WIN program, and then the other one was new to us this year, and also I was concerned about his maturity level to be included in the WIN program with those kids. They would have been the only 2 middle schoolers at the time in the WIN program, so it felt wrong to put a 6th grader and an immature 8th grader in with 9th and 10th graders. So we kept them in the younger kids program. We have 2 students who are attending Cholita, which is an autism center in La Crosse, and 1 student who is attending Cooley Connections, which is a more intensive behavior program also in La Crosse, and we transport those students, 2 of those 3 students we transport daily to La Crosse and back. And then for our staff in that program, we have 1 licensed special education teacher, Carol Last. She's a new employee this year. And then we have 3 paraprofessionals, one of them a veteran to us in the district, and then the other 2 are new. One of them is brand new. She came up on the personnel approvals for tonight. And then we have our van driver who drives the kids down to La Crosse in the morning. So that's her part-time position, and then the rest of her time, the other part-time of her position, is that she is a paraprofessional, and she is helping us out at Red Creek right now because special education programming required contracting virtual speech, and we needed an adult to be able to facilitate that. So our van driver also then facilitates speech. Some of the things that we do at the Gebhardt Essentials program, it is a special education program, so students who are enrolled in Gebhardt Essentials have to have an IEP. There is a focus on, I put SEL, that's social and emotional learning. Students are really working hard to build self-regulation skills, really work on their growth mindset and building their perseverance and ability to kind of stick it out in the regular ed classroom so that they've got those skills built up when they're ready to transition back. And the students do all receive individual academic instruction. They are all in different places academically. There's 4th graders, there's a 3rd grader, there's a high schooler with some extreme needs he has nonverbal autism, and so he fits in with that group. And then like I mentioned, our 6th grader and 8th grader. So everybody's at a different place academically, and Mrs. Lass teams with the different grade levels to get curriculum that is being used in their regular buildings, in addition to creating her own curriculum that's at their levels to address their individual needs. So we get to do some fun stuff sometimes. So there are opportunities for hands-on and out of the building learning. So the kids went with the WIN program kids.
on Veterans Day, when everybody else was at their Veterans Day programs in their buildings. Our kiddos got to go to High Ground and check out the memorial. So those are some of our Gebhardt Essentials fellas at High Ground. And then we have, I asked everybody what, because it's great to have celebrations. We love our celebrations, but we can't ignore our challenges. And so I asked Mrs. Lass what their greatest challenge was, and she said that their greatest challenge in that program is the variable start times for our students, because we have students coming and going all throughout the day in order to meet their individual needs. But it causes about this 1.5-hour block of time in the middle of the day that is just completely disrupted with kids coming and going. And then you heard about our busing and how Christy is a genius and runs all of our transportation and comes up like, whenever I need something, she's like, okay, let's figure out how to make it work. But we do have a couple situations that we haven't figured out how to make them work yet. And so so far on Fridays, I'm the midday transportation for our kids because there's not a preschool route on Fridays, which is what we're usually jumping in on. So it gets a little sticky and a little fuzzy, but we're making it work so far. WIN, the What I Need Now program, currently there are 13 full-time students. 4 of those are middle school students who have been placed in the program since the beginning of the school year. And these are students who are appropriate to be in this program. With it being 4 of them, we are able to divide the kids up a little bit more now, and so they can be in a group separate instead of having, you know, that 1 or 2 piecemeal kids popped in there like we were looking at the beginning of the year. So we've got our 4 middle schoolers, there are 9 high schoolers. 1 student is just kind of part-time in the WIN program. It's what that student needs at the moment. And then we have a student who is part of the WIN program but doing her work virtually currently. We have 3 students who are going to the high school in the afternoons when the WIN program is done. The WIN program is typically done at 1:45. And so it's a little bit before that this group of 3 students goes over and attends classes at the high school. And then we have 1 student who was with us for trimester 1 and met his goals and was ready to return full-time to the high school. And so that's one of our little success stories. And our staff for that program is we have 1 licensed special education teacher and then 2 teaching assistants. And they do divide up between 2 to 3 classrooms. Yes, Mary Jo?
You said that it ends at 1:45, and
Yes.
then 3 kids are going to high school. What do the others do?
They go home.
They just go
Their
home.
day is
They're
done.
just done.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Some features of WIN. It is a program for both regular and special education students, but all students do have individualized academic and behavioral goals. Students get to participate in extracurricular activities at the middle school and high school. So coming to a program at Gebhardt doesn't mean you're not part of your school any longer. There are still opportunities there. There is a big focus on social emotional learning. We have our DBT skills group. I will tell you that DBT stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. What that means is building those skills for grit, perseverance, growth mindset, conflict resolution, things like that. So definite social emotional skills building. And then there is an SEL class that's taught by the WIN staff, separate from the DBT skills group. We do have a counselor who comes in for that skills group and a licensed therapist who provides that session for the kids. It's weekly, and it is an expectation of the WIN program. So when students are making the move to WIN, they know that is part of their day. There's all sorts of paperwork that goes along with that. They do some career exploration with tours to and visits from local industries, and students do get work study credit if they have jobs. There's great opportunities for hands-on learning. The hydroponic garden will be up and running and growing things in February, and then they're really hoping to get the outdoor garden going again this spring. Last spring they started it and then it
fizzled. No, they didn't even start it. They didn't even start it last spring. So they're looking forward to getting that going again this year. They're working on some mentoring. They have a group of students that they call the Tiger Cubs, and they're doing mentoring. They went to, I can't remember which one of the elementary schools. They went to Forest Street and hung out with the kids at recess, and they're looking to build that even more and do some like reading with the kids and other sorts of activities. They're also working on doing some sort of in-house mentoring so that those WIN kids are pairing up with our Gebhardt Essential kids a little more purposefully than just shooting hoops in the gym, which is what goes on quite often, which is fun for them, but we're working on doing some more kind of leadership and skills building between those age groups. And then they get opportunities for practical skills applications. They've done projects and assignments where they've worked on budgeting, and then they go out shopping at Walmart or wherever. And then they've done some meal preparation. One thing that they've done that's kind of fun, part of that skills application and our focus on social emotional learning, is they've started doing a welcome breakfast anytime a student is newly starting in the WIN program. And so from time to time you'll walk into the building first thing and it smells like bacon in Gebhardt, and it's a lovely start to the day. And the kids are really enjoying it. They did take a walking field trip when we were at the D1 to the Wazi wastewater treatment plant. The kids had a great time with that. They had more fun than we expected them to, so that was good. That was a happy result. They really, I think it was a great opportunity to just get out of the building for a while, and it was a gorgeous day that they went. So they've done some other things too. That was the only thing they took pictures of. Mr. Halney says that their greatest challenge is student attendance. There's a large group of students within the program who are chronically absent, and so we're working hard on trying to find solutions in getting those kids more invested and getting them in school. And then finally is our Phoenix Credit Recovery Program. The current enrollment is there are 13 students in the morning. Different from last year, there's a morning session and an afternoon session. Last year there was just a morning session, and then afternoon was kind of reserved for some private tutoring. But this year we wanted to cast a wider net for these kids, and so we've got 13 and 12 between AM and PM. 2 students attend the high school half days, so one's in the morning and one's in the afternoon, so on the opposite side of their schedule, then they're at the high school working on classes there. We've had 6 students who earned enough credits to graduate throughout trimester 1, so that is a great success there. And for staffing for that program, there's 1 tutor who works with the kids. And Phoenix, the curriculum is that Edmentum online learning platform. It can cover all subject areas, and we can customize the classes to be appropriate to the students' needs. We do offer the programming for regular and special education students, but the students with IEPs then end up spending a little bit of time with Mr. Halney from the WIN program to make sure that we're meeting their special education minutes. And it is most definitely self-paced learning. Students set their own pace, work at their own rate, and then get tutoring and assistance from the staff member. And Nancy shared that her biggest challenge, or that the biggest challenge within the Phoenix program are students being distracted by their cell phones and then the inconsistent attendance, which seems to be a high school epidemic, something that globally, I think if we could solve that problem, we would be well off. So that is currently what's going on under the roof at Gebhardt. Questions?
Did Phoenix students still work part-time? Wasn't there a program where they worked half the day?
Yeah, COVID kind of put an end to that, where work was a mandatory component of the programming. I will say that most of our students who attend WIN and Phoenix do have jobs. Our Phoenix kids for sure, almost all of them have jobs. The WIN students, because we're 9th and 10th grade, our numbers of students with outside employment is a little bit, the percentages are lower, but they still do receive like work study credit if they do have a job. They just need to there's goals that they have to meet and sharing that they need
But
to
it's
do
not a
with staff,
requirement
but
anymore.
it has not been, no, it has not been made a requirement again. Another kind of barrier with that is we didn't want transportation to have to keep a kid from, you know, if you can't get to a job, is that gonna keep you out of a program that's gonna meet your needs? And so we didn't want that to be disruptive to their education.
On our last state report card, we had a large number of students that were our graduation cohort in 4 years. Our numbers the last couple of years have moved in the wrong direction. I really think with the tightening up of things over at Gephardt that we're going to see a significant change in that. The fact that we had 6 students graduate first try, my guess is most of those were probably meant to be 2022 graduates.
Some of them,
maybe.
yeah, but not all.
Okay.
When I looked at last year's data that I had taken, I think it was 4 students from the Phoenix program who met their graduation requirements the entire school year. So we've already exceeded that just in the first trimester.
Any other questions? There's a lot that happens there on a daily
We've got
basis.
a lot of new staff in the building, and it feels really good this year. Like we are proud of the work that we're doing, and the good things are happening. So come visit us anytime.
Thank you.
Alright, that concludes yours, okay. Next, WASB.
It's in February after the conference, right?
Yep, we have the group of Mary Jo's and Tom attending the conference. So any other conferences?
There is the legislative advocacy conference coming up in March. And I know we talked in our last meeting about when we did our self-evaluation that we're not really up on advocacy for legislative things. So, I usually have gone to that when they've had it. They have not had it for the last couple of years, but there is that. I will be planning to go, but it is a good conference to go to.
Do you know the date off the top of your head?
Yes, I have it in my calendar. I think it's like March 27th or something. You should have gotten notice on it too.
You sent some information out last week, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been nice.
If it's in my email, I'm behind on
Okay.
emails right now.
The conference is actually March 23rd, and the morning would be training on how to advocate for your needs, and then capital visits with the legislators in the afternoon. And they pair you up and make the appointments for your region. So you go with other school districts that are represented there. And then those 4th grade kids might be down in Madison. I've run into them more than once when I've been over there.
Were they nice to you?
Yeah, but they're at the Capitol too, taking a tour of the Capitol, and then I was there, and it's just actually
School board connection opportunities.
Last month I asked for some representatives for the handbook committee meetings. Those have been set for the 30th and 31st, so I will send out calendar invites shortly.
Of this one.
Of January, yes.
Yeah. I think I can make the 30th, I cannot make the 31st.
And I may be gone, but
Okay.
hopefully be gone.
Reminder that, and I'm gonna ask Melanie, the 1st and 2nd, February 1st and 2nd is 4K screening, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Just a reminder to, if you're talking to families, we have the community conversations, that was moved due to the weather to January 25th. And then not district business, but some good news in the community. We do have a youth soccer board. I was able to help facilitate that. So elementary principals, you'll be getting more information on that. I'm not part of that board. Just kind of helping that get started, but there'll be more information coming on that. So more youth opportunities. Anything else?
I went to Standards Based meeting again, and the group is really working hard on refining all the little details in their handbook for parents. Getting closer, a lot of details to figure out.
All right, if there's nothing more, So the board will adjourn to closed session. Then we need
Future
to-
agenda first.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yep.
I missed that. Future.
Just tiny on the bottom.
Yep. Any future agenda items? Our next meeting is Monday, February 20th. All right, so now, the school board will adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, subparagraph 1, subparagraph C, for the purpose of discussing administrative contract renewals in Wisconsin statutes 19.85, subparagraph 1, subparagraph C. So we need a roll call vote. Do we need a motion?
I think just a roll call.
Just a roll call vote?
Are we gonna adjourn beforehand or just go right to jump?
I
was asking.
No,
So what we typically do is we move into closed session and then we take like a break. So
Okay,
it gives
yes.
everyone a chance to
That's right.
stretch
Yeah.
and leave and, yep.
Yep, and then we'll, as per the agenda, we will move back to open session afterwards.
Okay.
So we'll take a roll call vote on that. Mary Jo Rosmanowski,
Yes.
Mary Jo Radcliffe, Nick Helsted,
Yes.
Tom Epps,
Yes.
Troy Webb,
Yes.
Ann Damer,
Yes.
and Brad Dobbs, yes. All right, we are in closed session, so we'll take a quick 5-minute break to let